Dev.
Hey, what's happening?
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing good. Teddy Bruschi said this week that he would like to see Bill essentially coach the bag out of the rest of the season and then walk off into the sunset and retire. What do you wish for Bill?
To do what he wants. I think it's always easier to kind of say that, you hope somebody walks away, but I think with football, it's so kind of final a lot of times. Like, if you're done, you're done. You don't get to, even if he goes and coaches the youth football team or something, it's not going to be the same. So I would rather see him decide, like, this is it and know what he wants to do next, no different than a player, and then go and do it rather than, say this is the best situation, so I'll walk away, but I still actually want to coach. And then, 4 months in, seeing him, do something else or jumping on another staff or something, which I don't think would ever happen. But I'd rather somebody walk away and, know that they're done no matter how that ending happens for that person. And I think for Bill, even though other people might say, I'd rather him not be coaching this year and have been done, or, it doesn't matter if he still wants to coach.
Do you think he can still coach in the NFL?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I've said it on here a bunch of times. I think if he was a bad coach, this team would have won 2 games or 3 games as soon as we lost Brady a couple of years ago, and that would have been, all right, this team's really bad. We've watched other teams lose their top quarterback, franchise-changing quarterbacks, and they've been terrible. I spoke about it. Indianapolis, like all of these different teams, the year that Peyton Manning didn't play, they were so bad. Denver has been trying to find a quarterback since Peyton Manning. Like all of these teams who have been, can't make the playoffs, can't win above 5 or 6 games. The Patriots are now struggling this year, but the other years, yeah, it hasn't been ideal. But how many other franchises would love to have 7 wins, 8 wins, 10 wins? That's just not normal for a lot of other franchises. But I think because of what Bill is able to do, people, they put him, and rightfully so, they put him at a higher standard because he has won so many Super Bowls and he's done a lot of great things in his career.
Wiggy said this morning that he thinks Matt Patricia should still be the offensive coordinator of this football team. Would you agree, having been there during that period of time?
No, because I don't think that fit Matty P, and I don't think it fit the team's best interest of like moving forward. I think Matty P is a really good defensive coach. I think his abilities and what he does from a coaching standpoint fit that side. I think he's more comfortable. And it's just more natural. I think he's, I haven't talked to anybody in Philadelphia, but I think he's finding, ways to benefit and help that team in Philadelphia because he is back doing what he's passionate about, what he knows well. And I think that's the key for a team. It's not just the success rate of the team, it's how everybody feels. And I think Matty P, I think it was even hard for him last year doing the offensive stuff, trying to get used to, coaching offense and coaching defense. Just the player personalities and things are just so different. And I think that was a huge adjustment for him last year.
Well, the offense was better last year on the Matty P than it is this year, so that was the reason why I said it. When you,
do you think that's true, Devin? And if so, why do you think it is?
Well, you guys probably know more about the stats. I mean, points per game and all of that stuff. I mean, it's not what I think it is. It just is what it is, with them being better. But I think having a new offense, I think what people don't look at a lot last year was we had a lot of success against some, pretty bad football teams too. So I think that changes different things. And I couldn't fully tell you, like, what's going on there. I felt like the times that I was there, it was better energy on offense around what they were doing and the different things like that. But I would say overall it just hasn't shown up for the statistics and how well they've kind of tried to play on offense, whereas last year it just felt way more frustrating for a lot of guys. But for some reason the statistics are better, and the wins were happening. So I couldn't give you like a really good definition of why it's not going well this year compared to, well, it didn't go well last year either, but why it was better last year.
Real quick, and I know you're waiting, Wiggy, but if you were on that football team as a leader, would you have said something to Devante Parker after the way he reacted to the media asking him about dropping that football?
As a player, no, I don't care what he says to the media. Like, how is he in the locker room? What is he doing there? Like, that's more important. I think sometimes when we're outside the locker room, all we have is what you say to the media. So it's such a big deal. I think, like, you look at even the Jets with Zach Wilson last year, like, everyone was done with Zach Wilson once he went up there and kind of didn't take ownership of the loss and all of those different things. And, it's only, months later where now he's leading this football team. You've seen guys rally around him. You've seen guys pick him up. I think that has a lot to do with it of how is he in the locker room? What is he saying? What's his actions? Like, that's way more important than what you decide to do when there's a bunch of cameras in your face. Are you comfortable with it? Like, everybody's different when it comes to, answering questions and talking to the media. So I wouldn't necessarily take that as like the golden standard of what he said, in front of the camera. I would take how he acts, what he does in the locker room more seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I just want a guy to take ownership and said, I should have caught that ball and not be a dink about it.
Like Devontae Smith.
Yeah, and he might have said that to the guys in the offensive meeting room. He might have came in there, he might have said it to the team. Like, I don't know. He might have said, like, hey, my fault, guys. Matt, come back to me. I'm going to make that catch. I need to make. Like, he might have did that, and, for everybody else on the outside looking in, we're only seeing an interview. And, I just don't think the interview is the end-all, be-all for a team. Like, look all the things Bill says in a press conference or anything. Like, I played on that team. A lot of that stuff is just him talking to the media. It's not what the actual team or what he's saying to the team. So I think that's way more important.
Dev, I had an amazing lead this morning where I should have got a lead cummerbund for it, but unfortunately I didn't. Question about whether or not, if you had to move on from Bill, let's just say we had to, and you start to look at his assistant coaches that became head coaches elsewhere and they haven't had great success, would you want one of the guys that they've already had? The names were Mayo and Brian Flores. I know those guys have done a good job, or at least Brian Flores as a head coach. Or do you think the Patriots should go completely new, different direction, no connection to Bill Belichick whatsoever as a coach, the next coach?
I can already see this now. So many people are going to write articles of what I said of this is the head coach they should get. I do think it benefits being elsewhere too. I think it allows you to see what other people, like, I'm sure for Brian Flores, he's learned a ton from going and being under Mike Tomlin, now being in Minnesota, just learning different things. I don't think they would be wrong moving on to a guy like Gerard Mayo or bringing back a Flores. Like, I think it's kind of crazy to think, like, let's get out of the Bill Belichick. Let's get out of the Bill Belichick tree. Let's not have anyone that's ever learned from Coach Belichick. Like, he's arguably the greatest coach of all time. I think it would be crazy to be like, no matter what, we don't want anything Bill in our organization. I just think if you look across the NFL, there's so many crossovers or different people that might not have only just been with Bill, but they have some connection with him. There's coaches like Sean McVay, after we beat them in the Super Bowl, sought out and had conversations with Bill of how to do things. There's numerous coaches that, like, behind doors have reached out to Bill, and he has a relationship with that they're trying to install and implement some of the things. So I think it would be absolutely ridiculous to walk away. And I know people are so now in the moment of what's going on, but I think it would be very, very stupid to be like, hey, we don't want any traces of Coach Belichick in our building. Let's just get away from it. Like, I think that's ridiculous.
Devin, it does seem like frustration may be bubbling over when it comes to a lot of players. Greg brings up the Devante Parker situation, but also Matt Judon on social media liking tweets saying come back to the Ravens, stuff like that. Should we as the media look into that? Well, no, because I do think social media plays a part. We see somebody retweet something, like something, tweet about something, tweet to another player, and we run with it. Is that silly for us to do? Do players think like that?
I would say it's hard for me because I don't think of that, but I would be lying if I said we haven't seen a lot of things done via social media, right? Guys go and unfollow the team that they're on, and then we find out days later they've requested trade. Like that stuff is real. Like it does happen in all major sports. Unfollowing your team or liking a tweet of they should trade me here or there. Like we've seen that through the years. So, but I will say there's no way that there's not frustration on the team. Like I think it's hard to be like, hey, if Judon liked that tweet, that's exactly how he feels. Like I don't know that, but I mean, you're 1-5 on a team where the thought process is that you're going to be really good every year. And you're 1-5. There's one team that's worse than you, and you're tied, for second to last in the whole NFL. If you're not frustrated on the team, then something's probably wrong with you. So I would definitely imagine there's frustration. I wouldn't necessarily take if somebody likes a tweet or retweet something. I wouldn't take that as like, man, this is final. They want this or that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with reading into it and being like, man, like, they're liking this stuff and they're doing this, like they're really frustrated. Like I think that makes sense. Like if I was on the team right now, I'd be frustrated.
Well, do you think Mac took it into account when Judon was tweeting at other quarterbacks to come play on the team? Because he's been doing that. He's been the lead guy when it comes to trying
Courtney,
to recruit.
Courtney, you hit me with a lot of different things I'm not aware of. You put me on the spot. So
you knew about this.
I've always felt like that was something that was important to me. I think nowadays in the NFL and in all sports, that happens so often where like it gets rumored for a guy to go somewhere else. I've always felt like, like if you look at my history of social media, I never really did that because I always did feel that like, I always felt like, man, if I tweet like, hey, we should have this guy on our team, let's say some corner is like a free agent or he wants to be out of there. I always felt like, man, if I tweet at this person and say, hey, come here, I'm like, damn, our other corners might be like, damn, D-Mac thinks we suck. I don't know. I don't think that's always a situation. Like sometimes it does help to get certain guys on your team. I mean, in 2014, we signed Revis and Browner, and we won the Super Bowl. So, like, that was awesome. But, I mean, I do think it comes from just a relationship with guys on the team that it's an understanding of, like, this guy can help us, X, Y, and Z. So I can't answer if Matt felt a certain type of way. But I do think when you're losing, everything feels a lot worse. If you tweeted, like, even if a tweet happened back in, like, March, if it resurfaces because somebody in the media talks about it or something, and you're losing games, everything feels way worse. Like, it's multiplied by 10. Just like when you're winning, it covers up a multitude of dysfunction and different things that are going on in every building. It's the same way every, like, corporate office, when you're, like, having major success, everybody kind of overlooks all the other things that are showing up. So right now in New England, like, everything to me is heightened because of that 1-5 record.
Devin, you referenced 2014, and in 2014, it was the birth of On to Cincinnati, a reset after the brutal loss against the Chiefs. 2018, you were on the team after consecutive losses to the Dolphins and the Steelers, a reset, a rededication to the running game, and eventually you won a Super Bowl. This year, obviously, the Patriots weren't going to win a Super Bowl after the restart that Belichick initiated following the shutout to the Saints. But how disappointing was it for you to see the Patriots continue down the path of self-inflicted wounds after Bill looked to reset to the basics against the
Raiders.
Raiders.
The Raiders on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very interesting because we look at those other moments because we won. It's like, man, like when Bill says this, it works. I mean, we all said a lot of stuff over the last couple of years and other years of like, we're going to do this now, and then it still didn't work, and we just move on, and it doesn't matter. But those years get highlighted because, we say we're moving on to Cincinnati. We beat the brakes off Cincinnati, and then we go on to win the Super Bowl. So I think for that team, like Bill used to always say that to us, like if you continue to do something over and over again, like it's not this thought of like, hey, we just got to do this a little bit better, or like that becomes who you are. Like it just is what it is. And I think for this team right now, until they stop doing some of the things that everybody keeps talking about, like we can't just look at, because we say we're starting over, because we say this, that things are going to change. Like, no, it's going to take a lot of time and effort for them to change some of the things that they're talking about because they've done it over and over again. So that becomes who you are, the penalties, the different things, turning the ball over. You've done that more times than not. So if we look and we're talking about it, it's going to take a lot for you not to do those things. It's not as simple as some of those other teams where you had a lot of guys that had played together. They had won big games. They had done different things that you could be like, hey, we're just going to get back to doing this. We're going to refocus on that. And everybody's like, yep, we can do that. Now it's kind of like you're turning over this brand new leaf of, all right, this isn't working. The things that we're talking about last year was the same issue, right? It's the penalties, it's the turnovers. Some of those things still came up last year. So now you're fighting kind of against who you are and what you kind of establish who you are on the field. And I think now they're trying to do those things. Like I've been in that organization for 13 years. Like when Bill talks about doing something, he is harping on it. They're killing them in practice over it. They're talking about it in every meeting. But until you can actually go do it on the field, that's when you start to believe it. Not just on the practice field. We talked about that last week. And an actual game going to do it. I'm sure they were in practice all last week, every time talking about drive starters, talking about starting a period off the right way, not getting false starts, not doing different things. And I'm sure they did it day in and day out, Tuesday all the way up till Saturday. And then they start the game, and they start off with 2 penalties. Like it's hard to just go and do something. You can talk about it as much as you want, but until you go actually do it, it's just talk.
I would definitely have a problem with Dev if we were teammates and he was tweeting about George Kittle. We'd have to have a sit down at the Halloween party like, Dev, what's going on here, bro?
But I do also think it's a little bit of like the times. Like we didn't grow up with access to like tweet people and like go on social media. And I think like nowadays a lot of guys know each other through the years of coming up being top players. And, like, the Pro Bowls, like, all the different things come up, and it just naturally happens. Like, I remember JC, like, when he was a free agent, he goes to the Pro Bowl, he's with Derwin James, they're talking. Next thing you know, he signs with the Chargers, and now he's – so I think, like, that kind of plays a part in everything, too, where guys don't see that it's like, yo, I want to play with my friends, so I'm going to talk about him being here, or I like this guy, like, I'm going to talk about him being here. Whereas I think when you're a little bit older, you like, hey, bro, like, this almost like we dating. Like, you ain't talking to nobody else. Like, we here. We together. You ain't about to be over here looking at another girl while I'm sitting next to you. Like, that's a smack in the face. So I don't think people always see it like that. I've always felt like, I don't know, I felt like if somebody was on our team and they're like, man, this safety's a free agent, we need to sign this safety, I'm always looking like, all right, well, which one of y'all saying need to go, me or the other safeties? And if it was me and Chung, like, who you think we need to go? If it was, me and Durant, who y'all saying need to go? Like, you basically telling me that. So, I mean, it's different, though. I don't think everybody views that the same now.
Devin, as always, thanks for taking the time, and we will talk to you again next week.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
We love it.
Oh, yeah.
We'd have you any day.
Right.
If you want to do another day, come on tomorrow.
If Dev was my safety, I wouldn't be tweeting at no other safeties. Guaranteed that.
I appreciate that, Wiggy.
Dev, before you go, you were in Kansas City, as was Taylor Swift. You said you would let me know if you came in contact at all.
Courtney, I was trying so hard, but see what happens is I was calling the game on radio. So on radio, you're on the 9th floor. Like, we had the highest suite in the stadium. Taylor Swift had the premium luxury. She was nowhere near me. So
sad.
I just couldn't. They didn't allow me to get close, It was
thank
a
you for
struggle,
trying.
but I was looking.
Oh.
Yeah. Next time.
Yeah.
Next time. All right, Devin, thank you very much. We'll talk to you next week, bud.
All right. Have a good one.
All right.